You don't need another bag, bottle, or fancy garden promise. Long before compost activators had labels, our parents, and theirs, used something already in the kitchen. No instructions, no extra cost. And yet, compost piles heated faster, broke down more evenly, and fed the soil in ways modern shortcuts can't match. This quiet method isn't hype. It's a small, powerful habit that transforms your garden from the inside out. Stick around. This old knowledge is simple, practical, and surprisingly effective. It's easy to walk down the garden aisle and feel tempted. Bright packaging, bold claims. Turn your compost into black gold in days. Activate your soil instantly. Who wouldn't want a shortcut like that? But here's the quiet truth many gardeners discover too late. Most commercial compost activators don't perform magic. Not really. They don't create life. They don't summon microbes out of nowhere. What they do is surprisingly simple and surprisingly underwhelming if your compost is already alive. Most activators are just food for microbes. Sugar, molasses, nitrogen sources, these are designed to fuel the tiny organisms already living in your pile. That's it. If your compost already has a healthy population of bacteria, fungi, and other decomposers, something that happens naturally when you layer greens, browns, and moisture, you may be paying for something you already have. The results? Sometimes noticeable, sometimes barely. This is where frustration sets in. You follow the instructions. You sprinkle or mix as told. You wait. And yet your pile doesn't suddenly transform. The promised heat, the rapid breakdown, the perfect crumbly soil. It doesn't always appear. And the advertisements never tell you that. Older gardeners understood this instinctively. They didn't chase the next product. They watched their compost. They listened to the smells. They felt the warmth. They noticed the texture. They learned what worked and what didn't by observation, season after season. There were no labels, no gimmicks. Just patience, curiosity, and respect for the natural process. Here's what modern gardeners can take away from that wisdom. Before buying a solution, check what your pile already has. Layer it properly. Keep it moist. Turn it at the right intervals. Feed it simple things you have on hand. Kitchen scraps, garden clippings, even a sprinkle of old soil. These practices often do more than expensive activators ever could. The lesson isn't to ignore science or new methods. The lesson is perspective. True composting success comes not from chasing instant fixes, but from understanding and nurturing the life that's already present. By observing, adjusting, and responding to your pile, you'll find your compost responds in kind, often faster, healthier, and more reliably than any packaged accelerator. Older gardeners didn't need labels or instructions because they paid attention. They knew that compost isn't about speed. It's about consistency, balance, patience. It's about creating the conditions where life can thrive naturally. And when you do, the rewards aren't just compost. They're the satisfaction of watching the process unfold, knowing that what you've built is alive, resilient, and completely yours. The simple kitchen ingredient. If you've ever felt lost in the garden aisle, scanning rows of powders, liquids, and miracle activators, here's a small but powerful truth. You probably already have what you need. The ingredient that can truly help your compost thrive is simpler than you think. It's plain sugar, or, even better, unsulfured molasses if you have some on hand. Yes, something as humble as molasses. The dark, sticky syrup you might drizzle over oatmeal or stir into coffee holds the key to waking up your compost. But let's be clear, this isn't a fertilizer. It isn't plant food. You're not feeding the garden. You're feeding the tiny life forms that live in it. Why does it work? Compost is a living ecosystem. Beneath the surface, billions of bacteria, fungi, and other microorganisms are at work, breaking down organic matter and transforming it into rich, fertile soil. These microbes need energy to thrive, just like you and me. Sugar and molasses provide that quick energy, giving them a boost so they can multiply and work harder, faster. But there's a nuance. Adding sugar or molasses won't suddenly turn a neglected, dry pile into a thriving compost heap overnight. It only works when other conditions are right. Your pile should be active, moist, warm, and containing. A mix of greens, like vegetable scraps or fresh grass clippings, and browns, like dried leaves or cardboard. Think of molasses as a microbe helper, not a miracle. It amplifies what's already alive. It doesn't create life from nothing. The method is simple but deliberate. Dissolve a small amount of sugar or molasses in water. Then sprinkle it evenly across the compost pile as you turn it. This gentle feeding helps the beneficial microbes multiply, producing more heat and accelerating the breakdown of materials. Over time, you'll notice the changes: faster decomposition, a richer smell, a texture that crumbles easily in your hands. Older gardeners may have smiled at this, not because it was revolutionary, but because it was practical. They knew that small, thoughtful interventions, like feeding the microbes rather than chasing quick fixes, were often more effective than expensive, store-bought activators. Their compost piles thrived because they observed, experimented, and adjusted gently. There's a quiet satisfaction in this process. Watching your compost respond to a simple kitchen ingredient feels different from the hurried promises of commercial products. You learn patience. You learn timing. You learn the subtle balance of moisture, greens, browns, and microbial life. And in the end, you don't just create compost. You nurture a miniature ecosystem that can sustain your garden for years. So next time you reach for that mysterious bottle from the garden store, pause. Look in your kitchen first. Molasses, sugar, water, these humble items, combined with attention and care, can be the difference between a pile that struggles and a pile that hums with life. Why this works? Compost is alive. That may sound simple, but it's worth repeating. The rich, dark soil you're working toward isn't just dirt. It's a bustling community of living organisms. Tiny bacteria, fungi, and other microbes are constantly breaking down leaves, vegetable scraps, straw, paper, and other organic matter, transforming it into the fertile soil your plants crave. And just like any living creature, these organisms have needs. They need moisture to survive. They need oxygen to breathe. They need a balance of carbon and nitrogen in their diet, the browns and greens of your pile. And sometimes, they need a small energy boost to help them multiply and work faster. This is where sugar and molasses come in. These humble kitchen ingredients act as microbe fuel. They don't replace water, oxygen, or nutrients. They simply give the living organisms already present a little extra energy to get moving. When you sprinkle a sugar or molasses solution over an active compost pile, you're giving the microbes a gentle push. They respond by multiplying more quickly, producing more heat, and breaking down materials faster. The effect is subtle but noticeable. In a pile rich with leaves, straw, or shredded paper, the microbes that would normally work slowly now have a bit of extra energy. The compost heats up more evenly. Materials decompose more thoroughly. And the end product, dark, crumbly, fertile soil, appears faster than it might otherwise. It's important to understand, this isn't magic. There are no shortcuts. There's no sudden transformation guaranteed. Just because you added a spoonful of molasses, the process still relies on balance, observation, and care. But the science behind it is simple, reliable, and easy to follow. Exactly the kind of method older gardeners trusted for decades. Think of it like feeding a small community. A little sugar or molasses is a treat, not a full meal. The microbes still need the basics: moisture to stay alive, oxygen to breathe, carbon and nitrogen to build their bodies, and a well-mixed pile to thrive in. When all these conditions are met, the sugar simply helps them work a little faster, helping you turn kitchen scraps into rich soil more efficiently. This simple understanding also changes how you approach composting. Instead of chasing every new product on the market, you can focus on the life that already exists in your pile. Observe, feed it thoughtfully, adjust moisture, balance greens and browns, turn the pile when necessary. The results aren't instant, but they're steady, predictable, and deeply satisfying. Older gardeners didn't need fancy activators. They paid attention, learned what worked, and trusted biology over hype. Sugar or molasses is just one tool in that approach, a gentle, practical way to support the tiny workers in your compost. How to use it safely and correctly. This is an important step. It might seem small, but using sugar or molasses in your compost incorrectly can cause more problems than it solves. Too much sugar can overwhelm the microbes, cause unpleasant odors, or even create an imbalance in your compost. That's why understanding the right method matters, and why this chapter is worth your attention. The first rule is moderation. Think of sugar or molasses as a gentle boost, not a main course. You're feeding the microbes, not replacing the foundational elements of your pile. The safe, reliable way to do this is simple. Dissolve 1 to 2 tablespoons of sugar or unsulfured molasses in 1 gallon of water. This creates a mild solution that spreads evenly across the pile without overwhelming the organisms living there. Next, apply it carefully. Sprinkle the solution lightly over the top of your compost pile. Then turn the pile gently to introduce oxygen. Turning is critical. Oxygen keeps the microbes alive and active and ensures the sugar solution reaches the areas that need it most. Without turning, you risk creating pockets that are too wet or unevenly nourished, slowing decomposition instead of speeding it up. Timing is just as important. Use this method no more than once every 1 to 2 weeks. Frequent application won't accelerate the process. It can create imbalances that produce odor or slow decomposition. Remember, this is a support technique. It works alongside good composting habits, not as a replacement. Moisture, proper layering of greens and browns, and regular turning remain the foundation of a healthy, productive compost pile. Maintaining the right moisture level is key. The pile should feel like a damp sponge, moist to the touch, but not dripping wet. Too much water can drown microbes, slow decomposition, and lead to foul smells. Too little, and they become inactive. Sugar or molasses works best when microbes are already active, so monitoring moisture and structure ensures your boost actually helps. The beauty of this method is its simplicity. A small amount of molasses, a gallon of water, and a careful sprinkle combined with turning and moisture control is all it takes to give your compost a natural, safe, and effective lift. It's approachable, affordable, and grounded in the same wisdom older gardeners relied on long before labels and hype. Above all, this approach builds confidence. You're no longer guessing, following advertisements, or hoping for magic. You understand why it works, how to apply it safely, and how to integrate it into a routine that produces results every season. This knowledge lets you nurture life in your pile thoughtfully and predictably. By following these steps, you transform composting from a chore into a mindful, satisfying process. Each application is a gentle way to care for your soil, your garden, and the tiny living community that makes your compost truly alive. When this won't work, let's be clear, sugar or molasses isn't a miracle cure. It can't fix everything. And part of becoming a confident gardener, especially when working with compost, is understanding its limits. There are certain conditions where even the most careful application won't speed up your pile, and knowing these prevents frustration and wasted effort. First, dry compost. If your pile is parched and dusty, microbes are dormant. They can't eat, they can't multiply, and adding sugar or molasses won't wake them up. It's like giving a snack to someone who's asleep. They won't benefit until the basics are in place. The first step is moisture. Your compost should feel like a damp sponge, moist but not soggy. Without this, even the best microbe food is ineffective. Second, compacted piles. When layers of leaves, grass, or paper are pressed too tightly together, oxygen can't reach the microbes that need it. Compost organisms breathe air just like we do. No amount of sugar can substitute for oxygen. If your pile is dense and suffocating, the microbes slow down or die, and decomposition stalls. The solution isn't more activator, it's turning and loosening the pile to restore airflow. Third, piles lacking greens. Microbes need a balance of carbon, browns like leaves, straw, or paper, and nitrogen, greens like vegetable scraps, grass clippings, or kitchen leftovers. Without enough nitrogen-rich material, your pile lacks the protein source microbes require to grow. Sugar can give them energy, yes, but energy alone isn't enough. You can't expect to speed up decomposition when the nutrients for growth aren't there. Understanding these limits is crucial. Many gardeners make the mistake of relying on a single secret ingredient while neglecting fundamental compost practices. The truth is simple: no product, no sugar, no molasses, no fancy activator can replace the basics of compost care. Balance, moisture, turning, and patience are the foundation. Everything else is supplemental. Experience teaches this better than any product. Older gardeners knew that a pile left too dry, too dense, or too light on kitchen scraps wouldn't perform well, no matter what was added. They learned to observe first. Is it moist? Does it breathe? Does it have enough greens? Only then did they consider gentle boosts to help the microbes along. This honesty is empowering. When you know what won't work, you stop chasing shortcuts and start focusing on what really matters. You develop confidence because you understand cause and effect. You see that success in composting isn't about magic, advertising, or instant gratification. It's about understanding life, balance, and timing. So, before adding anything, check your pile. Moisture? Check. Aeration? Check. Greens? Check. Once the basics are in place, a small amount of molasses or sugar can help. Without them, it's just adding a little sweetness to a problem that needs more attention. Composting isn't just a solo task. It's a practice built over generations, full of small lessons and quiet wisdom. Every gardener has their own approach, and every method carries the experience of those who came before. Now, it's your turn to share and reflect. Have you ever tried using sugar or molasses, or another simple kitchen ingredient in your compost? Did a parent, grandparent, or neighbor show you a different way? Perhaps you have your own twist, a subtle habit that makes your compost hum with life. Every story, every tip, every secret is valuable. Sharing these practices doesn't just help someone else. It preserves wisdom that might otherwise be lost. Take a moment and comment below. Describe what worked for you. Share a small observation or an old trick you found effective. Did you notice faster breakdown when you added molasses? Or maybe your grandmother always sprinkled coffee grounds or crushed eggshells instead? By participating, you become part of a living community of gardeners. A community where experience matters more than hype, where patience is valued, and where learning from each other creates richer results than any product could promise. Your input can inspire someone just starting out. It can revive a method long forgotten. It can spark curiosity in a fellow gardener who feels stuck. Engagement is not just about likes or views. It's about connecting knowledge, preserving traditions, and nurturing the shared wisdom of generations. This is the kind of learning that sticks. It's slow, steady, and deeply meaningful, just like compost itself. By now, one message should be clear: you don't need more products. You don't need flashy promises or instant solutions. What compost, and gardening in general, really requires is fewer shortcuts, more patience, and a willingness to observe and nurture the life already present. Sometimes the best solution isn't something new to buy. Sometimes it's already in your kitchen, quietly waiting. A jar of molasses, a spoon of sugar, the scraps of vegetables from last night's dinner. Sometimes it's already in your memory, a trick your parent taught you, a habit your grandparents swore by, a lesson you learned by watching and waiting. The beauty of gardening, especially composting, is that it's both simple and profound. You feed life. You observe. You adjust. You wait. And in return, the soil nourishes your plants, your garden, and even your sense of connection to those who came before you. So pause, reflect, and remember, experience still matters. Wisdom isn't found in the newest product or the flashiest promise. It's in the consistent care, the quiet observation, and the small steps you take day after day. If you found value in this video, like, share, and subscribe to the Evergreen Seniors. Share it with someone who loves gardening, someone who appreciates learning from experience, or someone who wants to rediscover the quiet power of patience.